What a wild morning. I mean, should any of us even be surprised anymore? I don't know at this point. But of course I wake up this morning. First thing I do is check my phone, as one does. I see a text from my boy Khalil saying Sixers fans are about to be in shambles after they lose James Harden for nothing. And then I scroll down a little bit in the conversation and he sends a tweet from Shams Charania with, of course, the James Harden video. I see the tweet. I think it's fake. So then I go to actual Twitter. I leave iMessage, go to Twitter. I check the account that it's from, and it's from the real Shams Charania. And it says the quote from James Harden in the tweet. I still don't believe it. So then I watched the actual video, which was this.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again. Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again.
That has to be one of the wildest things I've seen in NBA history. I know it's James Harden, and this is like his fourth time requesting a trade in the last 2 days, but to publicly call out the general manager, he didn't do it on Twitter, he didn't send out a memo, he verbally called the general manager of his organization a liar. And it's not like he was being subtle saying, oh yeah, there's some things going on in the front office that I might not agree with. He straight up called him a liar, verbally, to the public, in front of a crowd. And not only did he do all of that, he doubled down on it immediately. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised because it's James Harden. But seriously, even to this level, that is not something I'm not sure we've ever seen that before ever. So my initial reaction after finally believing that it was real is that there's so many layers to this. The first thing that came to mind was his relationship with Daryl Morey, because there's a pretty well-documented history about how close James Harden and Daryl Morey are. And this was a straight-up personal attack. A lot of times players will come out and say, I'm not happy with the organization, it's nothing personal. This was personal. There's no doubt about it. So what happened between James Harden and Daryl Morey that led to this situation? So there's a lot of things that maybe it could be. One, we know, of course, James Harden opted in to the last year of his player deal, and they said that there was an agreement that they would look to trade him, right? That was all the news when James Harden re-signed, what was it, a few months ago or something, right? So we get here, the Clippers try to, or the Sixers try to trade James Harden, probably to the Clippers. Sounds like they don't want him. Don't blame him, because James Harden is a bum and he's getting paid a ton of money to not show up in the playoffs. And he's going to want a lot more money when this contract ends. So don't blame the Clippers for not wanting him. Don't blame anybody else for not wanting him, which is probably the truth. Otherwise, the Sixers would have traded him. And if other teams were looking to trade for James Harden, it's probably for a very, very small package that's not making the 76ers happy, of course. So they come out a couple days ago and say, we're going to keep him. Now, that could be very likely what James Harden is talking about. But maybe he's talking about just an overall contractual situation, because if you remember, James Harden took less money to stay with the 76ers a couple years ago. Maybe they promised that they would get him somebody in the organization back then that he wanted to play with. They didn't do that. Maybe they promised him that they would let him opt out and let him re-sign for more money. That didn't happen. So then maybe that's why he finally opted in and they said they'll trade him. Now, whose side should I be on here? I don't know. A lot of people watching this might say, I have to be on James Harden's side. I've been on Damian Lillard's side this whole time and been a big proponent of the pro player movement, right? But there's a big difference here. Damian Lillard has gave his heart and soul. He's put his blood, sweat, and tears into the Portland Trail Blazers organization for 11 years. And he's been nothing but the most outstanding citizen and role model for that team and that entire city. James Harden has been in the 76ers for a cup of coffee, has done nothing. Oh, and he's pretty much burned bridges with every team he's been on the last 4 years. I mean, how many teams has James Harden been on in the last 4 years, really? I mean, when was that trade to Brooklyn? It couldn't have been more than, 3 years ago? So now you're already talking about what's going to be his fourth team. You're talking Houston, you're talking Brooklyn, you're talking Philly, and now whatever fourth team he may or may not go to. So there's a difference there. But again, I don't just want to sit here and judge James Harden because I don't know what Daryl Morey told him. Maybe James Harden was begging to opt out, or not begging to opt out. Maybe he was so set on opting out of that player deal, and Daryl Morey begged him to stay. Said, James, let us get something for you. Please stay. Please opt in. I promise he'll trade you. I swear on my life we'll trade you. And if you're James Harden, if you have a good relationship with Daryl Morey, if he's somebody that you consider to be your friend, you probably listen to him. And then, of course, if his friend Morey goes and backstabs him, well, now you have a problem. So whose side am I on? I really don't want to say at this point. I'm not particularly involved. If we do get more details, if James Harden comes out and tells additional information, maybe I'll make a decision. But truthfully, it is hard for me to give James Harden the benefit of the doubt for obvious reasons. So another layer to the situation is simply what happens next. Do the 76ers trade James Harden? I think you have to. I mean, we talk about players making it ugly. I talk about Dame wanted to make it ugly. My guy Brendan Tobin from the Tobin and Leroy Show, he has the acronym MAS, which stands for Make Us Stink. That's what James Harden did to the highest degree. I don't see how you can bring James Harden back to that organization and just survive. I mean, I think this is a big deal, what he said. A personal public call out. I've said it a million times, but that's because that's how crazy I think it is, right? So, but do they bring him back to spite him and then he doesn't play? Well, here's the problem. They got the rules in that new CBA or whatever. I don't even think it's a new rule, but basically if you willingly sit out, if you voluntarily sit out, not due to injury, then technically your contract doesn't end. Something like that. So as to say, yeah, James Harden has 1 year left on his deal. If he was to sit out on the entire year, he doesn't become a free agent because technically he did not fulfill the final year of his contract unless the organization agrees that he did. So maybe they could come to some sort of understanding like that. Personally, the easy thing to do is just trade him and move on. That's what I'm telling the Trailblazers to do with Dame. But if they want to get petty, they could keep Harden, not trade him. Harden can choose whether to play or not to play. And then if that goes on for the entire year and they still don't trade him, well, now you got a decision a year from now, next offseason. So it's a crazy situation. Now, I'd like to believe no team is stupid enough to just keep all this drama within the organization for that long a time frame. And I don't think James Harden will play. I don't see how you can come back from saying this and then go and play for that organization again. I don't see it. But it's going to be interesting. Regardless, maybe they're willing to trade James Harden for a pack of peanuts. Now he makes a ton of money. So it'd be really difficult to do that, especially for some more expiring deals. Because, yeah, let's say they trade for somebody who has a contract like Duncan Robinson, who gets paid big money. That's for a lot of years. And the 76ers would much rather keep Harden on the roster and lose him in free agency. You know, they could say, yeah, he fulfilled his contract, lose him, instead of taking on max money like or a lot of money in Duncan Robinson for several years. And I'm not saying Duncan specifically, but I'm just talking somebody who makes big money, who's overpaid, probably not worth it, and for a lot of years. Shout out Duncan Robinson, threw a little bit of shade at him there. The other layer for this situation is Damian Lillard. How does this impact everything regarding that? Because of course the NBA sent out a memo a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, saying to Damian Lillard and his agent, saying, oh, you can't publicly request a trade to one team, it's not good for the organization. Of course everyone's agreeing, saying, oh yeah, that's not good for the league. Where is the memo about this? I dropped multiple videos when that memo was sent out saying how annoying and frustrated I was with the league when you got James Harden doing the same situation right now. He wanted to go to the Clippers, and there's been nothing said about it. And not even this year. Nothing said about it in his past trade request. Nothing said about it when KD wanted to go to the Suns, when Paul George wanted to go to the Clippers, when Anthony Davis wanted to go to the Lakers. Nothing. And people said, oh, that's because those players got 1 year left on their contract. I don't care. At the end of the day, they are manipulating the trade market. That was the problem that the memo stated. So Damian Lillard, they said, was manipulating the trade market. That's the same thing that all these other stars were doing. Okay? Not to mention that if you had to argue, Dame deserves what he wants because, of course, everything is done for that organization. So that was the frustrating part. But what James did, way worse than anything Damian Lillard's ever done. So is there a memo sent out to the league? Do they put some penalties on James Harden? Now, he didn't technically request one team in this, but he publicly called out his general manager. You think the league has to step in and say something, because that's certainly not a good look for the league. Now, to be honest, I don't care whether they say something to him or not. I mean, it'd be nice to have some equality, but at the end of the day, is there going to be repercussions? Is there going to be some sort of new rule and stipulated saying players can't make it ugly like that? Players can't make a stink. They can't do what Jimmy Butler did, where he was with Minnesota, dominated the third stringers, or dominated the starters with the third stringers, and then went and talked to Rachel Nichols and told her and put on all the TV how much the Timberwolves organization sucks, and they effing need him. If y'all remember that quote that he said. But It's going to be interesting to see. But I really, Damian Lillard, as much as I'm getting on James Harden, Dame, take notes. Take notes, my guy. If you want to get to the Miami Heat, this is how it's done, potentially, because we still don't know what's going to happen to James Harden. But you got to make it ugly. And because I truthfully believe that if Dame was to come out and publicly rip the Trailblazers organization like this, and Joe Cronin and whoever that owner guy is, I think it could have lasting effects in the organization. You have potentially the greatest player in franchise history coming out and disparaging your organization, your franchise, that negatively, shining that bad a light on it. I think that could be really bad for the organization. You don't want to have that bad taste that in the mouth and completely burn that bridge with that organization. We just saw Dwayne Wade go into the Hall of Fame, right? He was obviously very mad at the Heat when they didn't pay him, and then he went to Chicago. And of course, over the years, they've worked to mend that relationship, right? But that was a breakup they were able to mend, because at the end of the day, the Heat just didn't value him as much as they should. Wade felt disrespected, but that was the extent of that. Wade didn't come out and publicly say, oh, Pat Riley is a cheap MFer, Mickey Arison's a liar, and I would never play for them. Because if that was the case, I'm not sure that D-Wade would have ever, their relationship with the Heat would have ever been able to recover. And then, of course, at the Hall of Fame right now, maybe you don't have the Heat representatives. Maybe you don't get D-Wade thinking Spo and Pat Riley and D-Wade thinking the Heat fans, and they starting the Let's Go Heat chants. You don't get that if you're the Portland Trailblazers organization, which I think is really, really important for your fan base to keep people happy, because if not, they're going to stop going to games. And I think it could get ugly if Dame gets to that point. And maybe Dame sees this from James Harden. Maybe he gets an idea and then he goes that route. That's not good for you, Trailblazers. That's not good for you. So we'll see if Dame decides to go that route or not. But that's all I got for this video, man. I did end up going to the Inter Miami game on Friday. I know if y'all saw my last podcast, I was debating going. I did go, so I was in Fort Lauderdale for the weekend. Phenomenal game, by the way, 4-0 win. Messi finally scored with 85, or in the 85th minute. So that was fun. But I was in Fort Lauderdale all weekend, so I didn't post in a few days. But I'm still working on that very big project. It's a video about D-Wade and Purple Shirt Guy, and a little bit of a deep dive into that video. And it's been really, really fun, man. That's a good one. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to leave a comment down below, and I will pick my favorite comment and shout out the next video. I'll see y'all next time. Both perspectives. Starting with the pro, you already know. Bye, bye, bye. That's my baby go. Give and get buckets, that's quid pro quo. Watch you on the top 10 list, mojo. You too can shoot from the logo. I'll be seeing you cook, putting dudes in the blender, then leaving them shook. As you only getting better, I'll be praying for defenders, and I calling you a Kindle, cause you like the book.